we covered pretty well the good overview of how you're running the keys and the CV and the MIDI. Now let's get a little bit more into the analog side. Now you got this really great Neve broadcast console. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's the late 70s, 54, 52, and it's got direct outs, and it's like Class AB. I think it sounds pretty similar to like everything else in that 5,000 range.
Okay.
Slow, colorful, bright.
Are you using that primarily as front end for?
No, it's like super half and half. Like I really actually have mixed many albums through that. But most of the time when I'm mixing down through it, I use it as a summing box. So I just kind of line it up and then probably don't really use the EQ. Depends, but it's really hard to recall that EQ. So if I'm going to do some EQ stuff, I usually print it.
Okay.
And then, I'll mostly just use the whole board when I'm mixing.
And then how do you like to sum? So you have 6 stereo pairs when you're coming out, or?
Yeah, sometimes I'll do a mono, but it depends. Like a lot of times I'll just run I'll get a mix going in the computer, and then and it's gotten like a lot more user friendly since I rebuilt this whole room in 2017. Like spring of 2017. So I rewired everything from scratch and rebuilt all the patch bays, and kind of, and I upgraded the converters too. So that's just went to the Avid, which sounds great. So yeah, that kind of helped keep what I was hearing off the board intact, like on the way back in, so I just I get the mix going in the computer and then just spread it across the console. Okay. And I can flip back and forth instantly to like A/B the console and the computer mix, make sure it's doing. And once in a while, I'll take it out. It's like not the right thing for the mix. But
you find if you're using a lot of like sub-lows or maybe more electronic based stuff, does that work better in the box than?
Yeah, and sometimes I try to do a thing where like I'll try to timeline. I haven't tried too hard. It just doesn't work. Like the mix really kind of wants to be in the console or it wants to be in the computer. I've found. What I will do is sometimes I'll print any number of stereo pairs, whether it's all of the vocals or just like one synth, stereo synth sound or something. I've done all kinds of stuff, like just whatever seems like is cool. Like print the drums, smack the drums really hard through the preamp, through the mic amp, and then run them in parallel and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I'll fold that back down in the mix, and then that mix will either go through the console or just stay in the computer. And part of this whole new design was like forward looking with the idea of having other types of summing devices, but I just haven't gotten there yet. So. Okay. I really want to add a fulcrum, which is like the passive summing thing, so I can make the gain back up with choice of preamps. And of course, the dangerous stuff is awesome. There's the Chandler stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This is like stuff that at some point.
Now, do you run, once you have the stems out in the console, are they hitting any other kind of outboard or?
Not too much.
No.
Yeah, just some effects sometimes, but. Yeah, mostly I try to get things happening, in Pro Tools, and usually I'll print stuff and then just have it up in the mix.
Yeah.
If anything.
About how far along in the process usually before you start to spread it out on the console?
Depends on how, what's the word? Confident I am that I'm definitely going to move to the console.
Okay.
Because I know it pretty well now. It's been since 2012, so. I usually have a pretty good idea of, and I'll try it anyway, but sometimes I'll try it on a record that I kind of don't think I want to use it on, and it'll surprise me or confirm. So, like, 3/4 of the way through ish or something, 80%.
And then you say sometimes,
or 60, sometimes I'll just get it up and running. A lot of times over the past couple of years, I'll start building. I've got like templates set up where I can kind of build the routing in pretty early, so I could check it pull it up and check it like pretty early. But like the tone stuff I was talking about before, a lot of times I like to get a jump on that, like get 40-50% into that, and then do a version of that across the mix, just so I have like sort of a working framework, like an ecosystem in the mix, and then check it out on the console and see if it's gotten better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I never like to try to let the console like fix my mix stuff. That I just have like it's kind of just like a natural sense of like how long I want to be with the sound, just as its own raw sound, like hearing it straight off the converters,
Sure.
And that's like super, it's like that thing I just said hasn't existed in so many situations over the years that it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But
right.
That's kind of just how I've been working on it. So yeah.
And then when you're using it as front end, is that, are those the workhorse, the mic pre's, are those kind of the workhorses in your studio?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just reach for those mostly.
Yeah.
It's cool too. I mean, it does the console thing. It's like they do sound different, and that's kind of a scary, weird other level of, I've definitely like.
You mean each channel?
Sounds a little bit, yeah. So I've got ones that I go to for certain things more than others, okay. But a lot of times I'll try to block that out of my mind and just spread the thing across, like if I'm doing a live band or something, mm-hmm. And just use the first 12 and without regard for what I know sounds a little bit different, and because that's part of the fun,
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't want that, then I don't know. It's like a whole different thing.
Yeah. And then, so you're tracking primarily through that, and then mm-hmm. You're monitoring. Are you monitoring off the console, or do you have a separate?
I'll usually monitor through the software.
Okay.
But a lot of times, if I'm overdubbing, I will monitor back through this ancient, amazing Allen and Heath live club, mm-hmm. small club thing that I bought at Sam Ash in 1997, I think, on sale, used. Okay. I walked in. I was looking for another mixer, and I was looking for it just for live stuff, like to play. Doing a lot of stuff that we all do in computers now. I'm just running like a rack of effects and a few different synths and like a couple of keyboards and maybe some turntables, and just sub-mixing, on a gig. So that's why I got that mixer. But I've come to terms over the past couple of years too. I'm like, okay, like this is just like a thing that you really like, and and I use it every day, and it sounds like it sounds like something that I know. So
yeah, well, there's something to be said for really knowing a piece of gear.
It's cool. It's like it's got like these push buttons, so you can kind of just send the sound all over the place, and like I feed it back a lot, mm-hmm. and I'll set up kind of chains of like things running into each other and feeding back, and then and it's set up so the whole output from that little thing is also on another push button on the Coleman switch right there, and so I can just get that right back into actually anything. I could sample it in the MPC or get it back in Pro Tools.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's gotten like wildly creative, like after the 2017 rebuild for that kind of stuff. Like you can spin through a lot of ideas really quick, like production or writing ideas.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
And how important is that for you to kind of work quickly and get the ideas documented quickly?
Man, I try to work as quickly as possible all the time. Yeah. And I mostly work hourly in here. Have mostly, I don't know if that'll always be the case, but and then it's funny because like I always crack up because I'm like working hourly and I'm really working at top speed, sometimes above top speed, which means that eventually you're going to pay for it like in one way or another, right? And I try not to do that, but I really, really love to work through a lot of material as fast as possible because I feel like the momentum builds on itself, and you might get someplace that you really weren't expecting, someplace really good. Mm-hmm. Whereas if things are, and I respect that people want to work in a relaxed way and take a lot of time to do things. And I think there's definitely a case for that. There's like a time and place for that. And if I sense that's going on, of course, I'm not going to like step on that. But I want the back end and the technical stuff to be like as seamless as possible, so that we're focused on the really terrifying creative issues that are there, sitting in front of us. And I feel like a lot of music never has the chance to get to that point because there's just a lot weighing on it. And I always encourage people that I'm working for or working with to really just like drill down and beat it up and get into it and be not afraid of taking things apart and putting them back together, and be rigorous and I feel like you develop the sense of knowing when you really got something on your hands that is a real thing, and you're just like, nope, that's what that thing is.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn that sense from maybe like overdoing it a lot.
Sure.
And just falling on your face like, with some ideas. And you're like, oh man, yeah, it's like killed that thing because we did it to death and it was the right thing. But if you do that enough times, then I think over time you might get to the point where you start to hear things and know things that are happening, and then be like, okay.
Well, and knowing too when things are done, right?
Oh yeah.
So how do you? What's that process for you? Like, how do you know when a track is done?
Man, it's really actually. I know that's a thing for a lot of people, and I have a lot of things that are a really big problem for me, but that's not one of them.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. And it's funny because I think if people haven't worked with me, and especially like on a final mix of something, I'll redo it 20 or 30 times, I'll stop the mix, and fix something, and sometimes that process will go over a couple different sessions, and there'll be a time when it just says exactly what I want, and mostly for stuff like that, I can go back any number of years and. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about it.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else thinks it should go a whole different way. I'm completely open to that. But for me, there's like this point where I'm just like, yeah, that's what I meant. That's it.
Well, it feels like you're maybe being a little modest about it, but you seem to kind of think maybe 2 or 3 moves ahead of maybe the rest of us, or maybe like when the project's going on. I mean, it seems like you're kind of looking what's around the corner. So. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why you've already sort of realized it before you've technically completed it. You already have the realization. I think that's something that I put myself in that category. A lot of people struggle with is, like you were saying, the technological thing slowing you down, and you're trying to catch up to the musical idea.
Yeah, it's a bear, man. It's like, and it's. I feel like I've invested like a significant block of my entire life space just really kind of like being a beta tester for a lot of it's mostly software, really. I mean, the hardware really, whatever. I'm gonna knock on some wood right now, but with the hardware, it costs more money, and it's like it's harder to get a hold of, but once you have it and it's just on, and it goes for amps and whatever instruments, it's like, oh yeah, you just turn it on, and it doesn't really do a lot of things. It does this thing that you need. And, and the software like does a lot, but it's just like it'll just destroy you. It'll eat you alive. And I kind of like a few years ago, I kind of decided. Well, I had a clear moment. I was like, all right, like, I'll never stop bitching about the pain of the software upgrade cycle and everything, and having a build that's what seems like the best version of the thing that does the most number of things, in the most seamless way, but and is also compatible enough with the world that it's not like hurting you by its incompatibility. But that's always going to be like a painful process. And at one point I was like, well, I think you either have to go like twice as hard into the firestorm of it to get to a point where it's working well for you, or I think, and that's another, of course I have all these 4 tracks here, so it's like that's the alternative, really. Yeah. Or I got the 16 track. We could make a rock record on that, but really it's like, you just have to like give that time away, I think, of building the software and building the computers to the point where they're just running stuff.
And we were talking earlier off camera about so the sort of cassette renaissance or maybe reemergence.
Yeah.
I definitely, as you know, we came up in a similar time, and I remember when cassette was the medium for music, at least, you know, that listening.
Yeah, you and Rocky were talking about that too.
Yeah, and you know that literally playing something until you wore it out, and that's a medium that if you had told me 10 years ago, I remember the first time something I had been a part of, and somebody was like, "Here's a cassette of it," and I was like, "What?" But it's opened up. I mean, these great creative possibilities, like you were saying, going back to the 4-track. I mean, why don't you talk a little bit about how you're reintegrating that into your workflow and creatively?
Yeah, it's mostly just like tone color stuff, but also some workflow stuff like you can kind of jam out on the tape decks a little bit, and then they all kind of do a little bit of a different thing. Well, the 246 and the 244 are so similar that it seems insane to me that I can't manage to get rid of one of them. And this is the weird thing. It's like, you know, some people have like a lot of the same types of outboard and popular microphones and stuff, and I can't. There'll be times in my life where I focus, you know, back into that side of the studio thing more, but I get obsessed with these things sometimes, and so they do a different thing sonically. They have like different distinctive sonic characteristics.
So you're saying you're using some for like creatively or just, you know, putting down ideas, and then you even have a sort of a mastering deck there.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the Nakamichi?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I would have killed for that thing when I was like 12.
Yeah.
Like seriously killed. Yeah, it sounds amazing. It's like, it just sounds really incredible for a tape deck, you know, it's just like,
sure.
And this is really all born out of working on the JH110 to the point where now it's like integrated all the way to being on the patch bass, so I can just turn it on and just throw a reel of tape up and mix down to it. But that thing, you know, sounds really fancy and like pretty hi-fi. It's like a mastering machine. So I just wanted some stuff that sounded like more cassette-y and tapey.
And have you been using that as almost a creative effect, like bouncing things on the cassette and then dumping it back into the session?
Primarily, yeah. Like, so for the 4 tracks, like, you know, just hit like one of the decks with something I'm working on, and then just capture it back in. Maybe at the wrong speed, you know. Or you just take a tape out of one machine and drop it in another and see what happens. That's kind of fun. The what is this thing? 414 Mark II. This is the super popular like thing that everyone's doing Instagram videos of now.
Right.
I got it when it was like a little cheaper, but that I got mostly for live stuff. For a thing I was doing with my brother, and I was telling you before, I was making like ambient tapes of like 4 channels of drones, or like, you know, there'd be like a piano improvisation on one track, and then like a synth improvisation, and maybe like a noise track.
And you were using these in like live performance?
Yeah, and then
to have queued up, or
make like a couple of them, and then maybe they have a key center, maybe they don't, and then you can kind of like adjust the master pitch of the machine and bring the tracks in and out, and run some effects, and then, you know, work with the arrangement of a live improvisation, using that as like a, you know, a texture that comes and goes from the piece. So it's pretty awesome, and it's got like you can use the mic inputs too as like a small mixer if you want to give a track up.
Yeah. So have you found, I mean, almost really with things like, you know, Ableton, it's almost like too good now to use, like, for, you're talking about using more in improvised music or improvising. Is it this kind of more of a raw technology kind of better suited for that in a way because of its.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, I've done a lot of work in Ableton. I've done most of everything I've ever done in Ableton, like for to a live end. And well, when I had the last version of the Wolves show that we did, when I had an iPad before the iPad and the laptop got stolen together actually on the same gig. It's fine. But the iPad, I had a Lemmer template with 64 sliders on it, and they were it was 8 returns in Ableton and all 8 sends enabled on each return. So it was just like this incredible effects matrix that you could feed back and route on the fly. And yeah, that's amazing. I mean, but you got to set it up and build it. So when you have a thing like that in Ableton, I think it's great, but there's always a layer of trouble with the computer, you know?
Sure. Well, I mean, you're studio owner, you're working on your client's music, you're working on your own music, you're preparing stuff for live shows, you're, you know, maintaining your instruments. I mean, you've got a lot of hats that you're wearing.
Yeah, and if you're, you know, and if you're doing a good job and like not screwing off, then most of the time you're probably like not doing that, you know. So, but then there's these times when it's going down and I'm like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is like truly amazing right now.
Yeah.
So
where can people find out more about your studio and what you're up to?
Right now you can just go to my website, which is my name, or you can just Google my name actually, and then the website comes up. It's joshuavalleau.com. And I've got some stuff there. I gotta update it a little bit. There's a studio page. It's got a pretty updated gear list for people who want to check it out, and because sometimes people come in to use something specific in here.
Yeah.
And I do all kinds of stuff. I do string quartets and rock bands and lots of vocals and of course keyboards and a lot of mixing and you know, of course I have to master stuff every day too, so but we don't talk about that.
We'll save that for the next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Ryan from Red Panda Recording signing off. Josh Valleau, The Glass Wall. Check out his website, joshuavalleau.com. Find out more about his music, more about the studio, and please subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned to next time. Take care, guys.
Bye.